becomes React server components instead of having to do a middleware function that routes to a different page. You can do personalization on a component basis, so it makes it so much
Oh,
more resource efficient as well. You don't need to like
exactly.
generate thousands of variants of a page. You can just generate 3 versions of a component that persist across all pages. So a lot of those are still in the works, but I think the future of Next.js and personalization at the edge is going to be very, very exciting and interesting
Oh,
to
yes.
explore.
And I actually have a few questions on that in our list for later, but we are live, but we were mid-conversation and just pressed the button. Um, let's do one step back. Stephen, please tell us who you are, what you do, where you're from, stuff like that.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. First of all, my name is Steven. Steven Tey. I'm a developer advocate at Vercel. I've been here about a year and a half now, I think, closing in 2 years. In about 4 months, it'll be my 2 year mark. I joined Vercel. Before that, I was actually doing my own startup, and I sort of got to know Guillermo. Got to know at the time. I think
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
they already rebranded from Zeit to Vercel, but got to know Vercel. Really loved the product. And when I was about to raise a round to do my startup, Guillermo was like, "Why don't you join Vercel instead and come here and learn about open source, about B2B sales, about hiring and managing people?" And that sort of it was a no-brainer for me because I was quite like in terms of starting a company. It was my first company. I didn't want to like
Mm,
jump too quickly into the founder boots. I want to get more experience working in a larger team, and Vercel was sort of at that sweet spot between a fledgling startup and versus like a large company like Google where there's a lot of like red tape and stuff like that. So it was a very
exactly.
perfect moment for me to join. It was right before the Series C. So yeah, I joined Vercel. Here at Vercel, what I do is basically I create a bunch of starter kits, templates that people can clone and deploy and learn about Vercel's technologies like Next.js,
Mm,
SWR, Vercel OG that allows you to generate OG images at the edge functions, edge middleware, all those fun stuff that we're going to talk about later. So
exactly.
yeah, that's basically what I do. I also maintain our templates marketplace, which is kind of like it's kind of meta if you think about it, because like a marketplace of all of these templates that I built plus folks templates that other people built. We basically compile all of those into one spot that people can easily clone, deploy, view the code, and learn more about Next.js and Vercel. So yeah, that's what I'm doing on the side. I also maintain this fun little side project called Dub. It's link shortener, open sourced,
Oh,
basically
cool.
open source version of Bitly. Also uses edge functions and dogfoots a lot of the Vercel technologies. So it's a great way for me to understand more and provide feedback to the team at the same time. Uh, you know, get to work with a lot of different cool customers to use the product. So yeah, that's a bit
Nice.
about me.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, and you're basically patient zero for all the new stuff that comes out.
Exactly.
As
Yes,
am I. And so
I'm the
that's
one.
awesome.
I'm basically the lab rat. They test a lot of stuff on me, and I'm like, if this sucks, I'm like, this sucks. We gotta change it. If it doesn't, I'm like, this is really cool. But yeah, that's me.
Awesome. All right, thank you so much. So today I actually want to talk about the new direction that Next.js and Vercel are taking with building projects. And it seems like the landscape is changing really fast and things are
Definitely.
sometimes grabbing back to how it was, but then with a new flavor. And so just to kick all that off, like my
Mhm.
first question would be like just talk to us about what like React server components actually are.
Sure. So React Server components are basically React components that is rendered on the server side.
Mhm.
And when it's fed to the client, it basically a very minimal amount of JavaScript is sent over, which improves performance and also allows you to server render components, server render your pages. On top of that, it also allows you to do data fetching directly inside your component, which is unheard of
Right.
before that. Like if you want to fetch, you need to inside Next.js, for example, if you want to fetch data in your component, you gotta create an API route. You
Yeah.
gotta like call that API route and then get that data, which is a lot of steps. But with React Server components, you basically just do await db.fetch whatever inside your component directly. So that sort of changes up the game when it comes to personalization, when it comes to building multi-tenant applications, or even just building, applications that have like a lot of nested components. Like if you're building
Oh
an
yeah,
app,
sure.
for example, there's a sidebar, there's a menu bar, there's a, I don't know, like another nested menu bar and menu layout. All those become super easy to build with the whole React Server components paradigm.
So it's essentially just the same as like an isomorphic app that Next.js was a few short years ago. but
Hmm.
then with some extra flavor. And so these components can also
Yep.
be hydrated on the front end, I imagine.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
But you can run them without hydration. It's just pure SSR. No window object, just run.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
obviously window and navigator, all those different client side libraries, I mean functions, they're not available on the server side. So what you could potentially do if you need to use those, or if you need to run a client side function, is you could use the use client directive. Basically, it
Yeah.
converts that into a client component, and then you can basically run that on the client side. So this allows you to do a match, like basically mix and match both server and client components to build an application. And a good
Okay.
example for that is if you're trying to use frame motion, for example, which is a very
Yeah.
popular animation library.
Exactly.
That's not available on the server side. So you gotta mark your components as use client, turns into a client component, and you can start using animations and all those fun,
And so
client side
how
libraries.
would I now we're going in the rabbit hole. So let's say I want to do progressive enhancement, right? So I want a server rendered component that has like a little bit of a frame and some basics. But then on top of that, when the client loads, I then want to animate it. But
Hmm.
I don't want it to be just a client component because without JavaScript, it should still look good. Because
Hmm.
of course, when you have a slow browser and slow connection,
Yep.
you should see it. But
Yeah.
then later on, I want to add the animation. How does that work?
Yeah. So what the app router right now, that's what we're calling it, the app router in Next.js 13, what that allows you to do is for each of these nested layouts, the nested components, nested layouts, for each of them, you can specify a loading screen, so a loading
Okay.
component for them to handle slow data, slow Wi-Fi situations. And what that happens is every time when the server component is still is still fetching the data, it shows the loading component that you built, and then basically the server components gets hydrated onto the client. And with that, there's another thing as well, is that you can actually nest a server component inside a client component, but you got to do it the right way. It's a bit tricky
Yeah.
there. And that the reason why you would do that is because if you want to do animations for your server components, you gotta like put that inside a client component and have that animate. We have all of
Yeah.
those is written out in the doc, so I highly recommend checking it out. But you can definitely, there's a lot of ways that you can navigate this new paradigm here.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. And it gets really far. But like so the main thing I'm thinking is okay, so I can do a fetch in every component, right? To just
Mhm.
get the context for that little thing, which is
Mhm.
really cool. But wouldn't I just get a page where I have to do 16 HTTP calls happen? How do you make that fast?
That's a good point. We have the cache directive, which is it's basically an API for you to reuse connections. For example, there are two types of caches though. First one is segment level caching, and that's basically the same. If you're familiar with the uh, pages approach with Next.js 12 and before,
Yeah.
it's similar as get static props or ISR, incremental static regeneration,
Hmm.
that basically allows you to pre-generate those pages. If you have 16 API calls, it all gets, rendered at build time. And therefore your pages are still instantaneous. Bam, it just loads right away because it's already hydrated, already rendered. It's all done on the at build time. And
Yeah.
then you can easily revalidate those if you need using ISR. Revalidate actually already works in the app router, which is amazing. It didn't work like 2 months ago.
Yeah,
Um,
I've seen that. I think in my personal app is like revalidate 60 or something. And
exactly.
then so yeah, that's super cool.
That's one way to do it. That's an interval based revalidation. That's
Exactly.
also on demand revalidation, which is you don't need to set
Mhm.
that 60 anymore. You can put it forever, and then if there's a change to your database, to whatever row, you just revalidate that page, and that's it.
But then
Or
you need a
single
webhook, I
component.
guess.
Yes, you will need a webhook to revalidate that page. Right now, I think we only support page-based validation. In the future, we want to support component-level
Oh
validation,
yeah,
which is possible with
exactly.
React Server components. So that's the
And
first
so
one,
is it
segment-level caching.
essentially
Mhm.
yeah, I'll get there in a sec. So is it essentially basically just a server-side rendered app that on the first render caches everything
Yep,
and that then becomes almost your SSG? Or
exactly.
is it on build time already SSG?
It's on build time SSG. It's all
Or it's on
rendered
build time. Okay.
during build time. And that's why I mentioned the on-demand revalidation aspect, which means
Yeah.
that after build time, you can easily make sure that the pages that are rendered can be revalidated and the data can be fresh. So that's one way. That's called segment level caching. That's also, I believe it's called request level caching. And that's for if you want to fetch data via like an API function on the client side. So that basically, we also have a cache API. If you're using fetch inside the app router, it already has cache built in. And what that
Okay.
does is basically reuses the cached results for a certain time frame throughout the entire session. So, for example, if you're going through different pages and there's the same API call being called between page A and page B, the one that comes second will reuse the cache from the first call. So it
Nice.
basically improves your saves on resources. You don't need to invoke that function so many times, and at the same time provides a better experience to your users as well.
Wow. So many cool things. And so these cache keys, can you set them yourself or is it just black magic? It just works.
Yeah, you can actually set. This is actually quite. I believe it's still in development. We're still like exploring how this is going to work, but we do want to make it in such a way that you can set a certain key. So it's something that actually I deal with a lot because I'm building this starter kit called the Platform Starter Kit, and
Hmm.
that's a starter kit that allows people to build multi-tenant applications. What that means is if you're building like a blogging platform, if you're building like a newsletter platform, each of your users have their own domains, right? And therefore, sometimes what happens is if a user wants to say, change the logo of their blog, that logo is used across all pages, right? And
Yeah,
when you revalidate those pages, what you want to do is able the ability to revalidate a certain cache key that basically triggers revalidation of all the pages. Instead of having to send like 1,000 revalidate calls, you just send one
exactly.
targeting that cache key. So that's what we're working on right now. It also depends on how component based revalidation would work, because in that case, all you need to do is revalidate the layout or the header component. That's it. So yeah, a lot of these are still basically being under researched. It might have changed in the last week. I'm still honestly
I
catching
love
up
that.
on that. Things move very quickly here at Vercel and the Next.js team. So yeah, I think we basically will want to go towards the approach that makes the most sense, is most intuitive, and also saves the most resources for the developer.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I think what is happening here is like it's the DX to the max. We love that stuff, right? Because these kind of toolings, they have existed, but
Hmm.
they've never integrated with your developer's process. Like
Mm.
for example, on Akamai, you can actually purge the cache of
Hmm.
1,000 pages, just a little thing that's
Oh.
wrapped in XML tags called
Oh.
an ESI tag. We
Hmm.
used to use that back in the day, but that was not connected to your front end development workflow,
Yeah.
right? So it's all these things kind of just exist on their own and you have to somehow integrate.
Yeah.
And now when you look at Next 13, but also Nux 3.3 that just came out, they have all these similar things and now it's all in your hands as a developer.
Hmm.
And it's probably dangerous as well because you might be able to screw things up quite badly.
Yeah.
On the other hand, like you have some smart defaults in most of these things.
Yep.
So I guess it works.
That's
And
a reason why we're a huge proponent of using ESLint rules and TypeScript to
Mhm.
provide the best developer experience so that people don't mess things up. So like if you're specifying a value that's incorrect or could lead to like an infinite loop or something like that, we'll throw an error or throw a warning so that the user or the developer is like aware of the potential repercussions of what they're writing, the code that they're
Yeah.
writing. And I feel like this sort of is a good segue or even like a transition to what you guys are doing at Uniform, because it's like you need to connect all these different tools. You mentioned Akamai, you mentioned before when we were talking about Cloudinary, all these different tools and how you connect that to your front end. So like at Next.js, we have all these nice primitives that you can tap into. And at the
Yeah.
same time, Uniform provides that unified API layer that you can use to plug and play all your different data sources. So yeah, we can
Exactly.
talk about both, but I'm
Well,
very excited to.
first, I have one question and then I'm going to show you, but I'll show you directly now. Let me just
Okay.
share my screen and show you a website I just built,
Hmm.
which is actually, I think I'll just share a Chrome tab. Let's see if that works.
Okay.
So, this page here, this was actually built with Next app next app folder,
Okay.
right? My
I
question is,
actually
like
don't
when you
see your
have,
screen, by the way.
can you not see it?
Mm-mm. I
Oh,
mean,
my mistake.
now I
There we
do it.
go. There
Yes.
we go.
Perfect.
Sorry about that. So basically, this website was built with Next 13, all the latest fancy stuff.
Nice.
And so what I'm used to when I use Next 12 and I use SSG, you
Mm-hmm.
see those links on the top, like
Mm-hmm.
composable without compromise and pack the stack. Those are link tags from Next Link and they get prefetched and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. When I click on one of these links, it's essentially a single page app.
Yep.
So it's hyper fast. But
Yep.
now when I go from this one to, let's say, this page,
Mm-hmm.
this is a full reload. And you can see it took a while to load actually.
Hmm.
Let me just go to the next. This one is a bit faster, but somehow I don't think these are pre-fetched. And
Interesting.
so is there a way for me to do that? Because we just followed the docs. It's very simple stuff with Next.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if that should have happened because now when I go back, you see this one took a while, but now they're super fast. So it had to just kind of warm up, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
But I was kind of wondering, shouldn't that have just been prefetched and it then becomes like a single page app somehow? Or maybe there's been a choice. You go SSR, you fully go SSR.
Yeah. So I think this also depends on if you're using, like what I mentioned earlier about segment level caching.
Hmm.
If I believe all page, by default, all pages in the app router are statically rendered. So they should be fast. So I'm definitely very curious why this is happening. If you're using Next Link, it should prefetch the JSON and like all the like stuff behind the scenes for that page. And when you click on it, it should happen instantaneously. And the only reason you could see a cold boot, which is what you mentioned, the first time to
Hmm.
warm up, that can only happen if you're using on-demand like generation of the page using something like if you're setting it to no cache, for example, and that means that the page is being generated at request time, which could result in a cold boot with
This is
serverless
likely
functions.
what this looks like because I'm not
Yep.
using get static paths or get static props and stuff like that. So it's
Yep.
just, but I'm now looking at the code and it's my
Uh-huh.
mistake. There's an A tag, it's not a link tag. There you go.
Ah,
That was an
that's a,
easy solve.
that's a big one. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
So
tricky
I
one.
should make those link tags. Okay,
Yeah,
that's cool.
I think I believe in Nexus 13, with the if you're using ESLint, it should warn you that A tags are not as
Well, let's see.
performant versus like if you're using the native image tag, it will also tell you that
Okay, so
uh
this is now not telling me anything. Am I sharing? Nope,
mm-mm.
not yet. Here we go.
Okay,
Oh, but wait, it might actually. No.
it did not. Yeah, there if there's a warning, it should be in like yellow squiggly
Yeah,
line.
exactly. But of course, it should be this, and then suddenly things start happening.
Yes.
Cool. That's an easy fix, right?
Yeah. The cool thing about link, the new link tag is you don't need to, in the past, you needed to do link and then nest like an A tag inside. But now the
I
new link
remember. Yes,
component, exactly. But the new
I
link
never
component,
understood that, to be
I know
honest.
it's a bit confusing. So in the new link component, it behaves and you write it the exact same way as you would a regular A
Like
tag. You can put class
exactly.
names, you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot more
Okay.
sense.
So let's move on to talk a little bit about what Uniform does and how we fit into this, because
Okay.
um, we see a lot of customers that are very interested in doing all the server-side rendering stuff, but
Yeah.
also static. But server-side rendering is getting more and bigger because we work with enterprise customers that have thousands of pages
Mm.
and multi-tenant, multi-language. There's lots of things going on, and so setting everything up with rendering sometimes is not the thing. And
Hmm.
so essentially, what Uniform does is we like to help you out with if you have a whole bunch of data sitting all over the place in different systems.
Okay.
We call that your domain data, shall we say. So your CMS, let's say you have an events website like this. I can actually let me just share that screen again.
Hmm.
I'll just go for the full screen so you can see everything. So basically, this one, right? So this is the website I built for Uniform. And this is essentially an event-based site, right? So we have
Sorry,
live streams and
I still
things
can
like that.
see. I don't think you're sharing it yet.
It's
Okay,
very
now you are.
interesting if you do this with one screen. This is my feedback. Thank you. So essentially, lots of this content could
Hmm.
come from different places, right? So when I go
Hmm.
to, let's say, Unpack the Stack, that's literally the thing we're doing right now.
Hmm.
These actually come from YouTube, but they could also easily just come from a CMS, for example.
Right.
But how they are shown could be very different, right? We could
Hmm.
actually make this one a featured event, for example, show
Yeah.
it bigger, whatever.
Yeah.
What you don't want to do is muddy up your data model in the CMS to add a checkbox to make it featured. You kind of just want to do that in some sort of design system, because you see all these components here. This is just a design system in uniform,
Right.
and they all link out like these. This list actually links out to Notion,
Oh, no
because
way.
it's yet another system that has
Mm.
data that we want to use.
Right.
And so we have certain projects, like, for example, if you go to this website, um, this comes from YouTube. These actually come from Contentful.
Hmm.
This comes from YouTube again. This comes from dev.to. So when I click on one of those, I just go
Oh.
to dev.to. And so in Uniform, you kind of connect to all these systems, and
Hmm.
we can even connect to legacy systems if you want,
Right.
like old stuff like Sitecore or whatever you want.
Hmm.
But for example, you can also connect to Algolia. I have a website like this, for example, where I have all my tutorials. Like, these tutorials are essentially all in um, Contentful, but they're matched and linked into an index in Algolia, so you can search
Mm.
through them. And
Nice.
this data is all external, and Uniform makes sure it's designed a certain way. And these pages are compositions that you can
Mm.
attach to your design system and make it look good. And
Right.
so you might sometimes want to do that with SSR.
Hmm.
Sometimes you want to do it in the client. You can do a whole bunch of different things here. And so um, what's so interesting is that you have all your information of all these tools and all these services and sources together in one place. And so I can show you, this is like a little demo that I just spun this up right before our stream.
Nice. It looks
And
really good.
well, the point is, we need to be able to do that in like 20 minutes or
Right.
less,
Hmm.
right? And so that's essentially this project. And so in Uniform here, well, let me just go into the start, because I'm just jumping in the middle, because why not, right?
Right.
But anyways, this is the dashboard. And so when you go to integrations, here you can see a ton of things we integrate with. But you can also see some custom ones that I made myself, right? I want to have
Hmm.
markdown files on GitHub that I use as my database, because
Hmm.
why not? Right?
Right.
So you can select these. Or you can go Algolia, the stuff I just showed you, or Akamai, or, well, like, of course, we have Vercel here. And
Mm.
so we integrate with a whole bunch of different things. And if you have a Vercel integration, you can send webhooks directly from Uniform, and it all just fits. You
Nice.
can you can trigger releases, you can see your status, whatever. But you can also say, let's just go to a CMS, for example. Like, there's a ton of CMSs we integrate with, but also things like Cloudinary for images.
Mm.
And so essentially what you do, you have a whole bunch of components that you can create,
Okay.
and these are connected to your front end, right? So
Right.
this is a hero, and you can see here this little image of the hero. That's the
Hmm.
one we just looked at, right? That's this one.
Yeah.
And so all the props that you would have in your React component, you put them here in Uniform.
Right.
And if you now have a CMS integrated, there's just a little integration that says, hey, this parameter connects to your CMS entry, and you select it and you're ready to rock. And
Right.
so for this project, the integrations that we have like the starter kit, and
Hmm.
we have a fake commerce, because why not, right? It's just easy for a starter. It's like a little mock. And so if you now go to, let's say, the homepage here, you can actually inline edit everything. So when I select
Wow.
this is now the hero, and these are my props here on the right,
Yeah.
and these connect to React. So
Wow.
if I change this to centered, it just renders it differently.
Mm. That's amazing.
And we have some different image variants that we just hard coded in, because front-end
Yeah.
developers can just choose whatever this is.
Yeah.
But you can also say, not new, but let's just type it in best. And so what's interesting about this hero is kind of stuff that you might want to put in Uniform, right? So you can start adding
Mm.
some stuff, because this thing might change next week.
Yeah.
But this is not something you might want to get from a CMS, because on its own, it doesn't mean that much.
Mm.
But when you go to a product, let's say like this one, this actually now makes more sense to get these products from an external system here.
Right. I
And
love how
so
easy it is to basically preview whatever changes you make
exactly,
at
because
different
this is
viewports
literally
as well.
my next application. It's very
Wow.
simple.
So Uniform basically integrates directly with your Next app, and
Yeah.
that's
So when
how
I
it.
actually click this here, so now
Yeah.
I just clicked on preview it. And so this is literally that Vercel URL you just saw
Wow.
in here. And so we have an SDK that figures out, hey, you're in your editor. So the SDK just figures out, okay, these are my components that I have. So let me just select one. And so all these properties become changeable, and then you can hit save. And if you hit publish, you can have a webhook to rebuild Vercel or do whatever you want, essentially.
Right. That's amazing. And the cool thing about the ISR that I mentioned briefly earlier is
Mhm.
you don't even need to rebuild your Vercel application.
Exactly.
All you need to do is send, like, if you're changing like a copy on the homepage, all you need to do is send a res.revalidate, and you can basically just regenerate that one page only
Yes.
instead of having to rebuild 1,000 pages.
We have that set up, but I don't think it's in this demo right now.
Mhm.
But it's a very easy setup to add
Nice.
for us. And
Beautiful.
so, what's interesting about this is now an SSG site,
Okay.
but because I have all my information here, and so for now, the only integration that we have with these products is just this like little mock store because this is a starter kit.
Yeah.
But imagine this is Commerce Tools or something or Shopify.
Right.
And you can add Algolia for search. You can add 5 CMSs and assign them to one component and just fill different props here with the CMSs if you wanted.
Right.
The thing is, what we output is saved on the edge. So your front end components don't actually need to know anything about the connections to whatever they're connecting to. They
Right.
just need the props. We aim to make your front end stupid, right?
Wow.
No data mapping, no modeling, nothing. Just use your fancy Next features and make the best site you can without having to think about all the content.
Right.
And
That's
what
incredible.
what makes this really fun is this. You see here, there's a little personalization tab, right?
Mhm.
So because we work with enterprise a lot and a lot with e-commerce and things like that, personalization is extremely important.
Right.
It essentially gives you like 20% more conversion if you really do good personalization.
Definitely.
And so, but what happens if you have 5 different headless sources where you get your content from? How do you build personalization? That's
Yeah.
crazy hard to do because you can do it all in your code. You can just
Yeah.
use the Vercel edge to say, hey, I'm in France or I'm in San Francisco and do something in code. But then
Mhm.
content editors can actually not build your personalized shopping experience. It's extremely complicated. But we build it in here because we have access to everything. So, for example, these are 2 variations for personalization, right? So when I click
Yeah.
on beans, you get coffee beans.
Right.
And otherwise,
Different
by
hero
default, you get.
image. Mhm.
And so when you look, we call this context, right? So this is the default variant. But
Okay.
here, there's a signal called beans. So let me
Mm.
just quickly go into how that looks when you go to personalization, for example. You can have a whole bunch of different things from different audiences or
Wow.
key value stores, but this is just a quick signal that says I'm interested in beans. So this is a query string. So if I do a UTM campaign that
Mhm.
equals beans, well, you can imagine that you have a new campaign for next week where you want to sell out all your latest beans because
Yeah.
why not? Right? So you make a campaign on YouTube or on LinkedIn or wherever you sell your stuff, and people click on that campaign link. Well, based on that campaign link signal, we can make different design decisions. So when you now go to, oh,
Do you track the results as well?
exactly. So what we actually do
Nice.
is the moment that happens, our SDK, that is super light actually, just tracks what the user is doing.
Mhm.
And then based on that, scores some points.
Wow.
So actually, when we go to the homepage, like this hero, if there's actually a query parameter
Mhm.
that has beans in it,
Mhm.
you can see if the signal beans is hit, it's going to show you this one. So what we can do is now say UTM. I have done it, right? So UTM campaign is now beans. And now this is the hero. Now, when
Wow.
I go there next time, it has scored some points against this beans signal. Now I'm just seeing beans.
Right.
And you can do it, you can go so far as when I scroll down and I go past this component, I can score some points against machines. And then the next time, this is a different list. You can
Wow.
go super far, and it's all hosted on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
While this is actually an SSG page, if I turn off my JavaScript now, I have a little button here.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I have no JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it would be nice if it didn't show this bug, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
We tested this. Wait. Maybe that it works on this one. Oh yeah, on this
Ooh.
one it works.
Okay.
My apologies. Basically, I have no JavaScript now. My
Mm-hmm.
lazy loading images somehow don't work. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But the personalization happened, right? And this is like a
Right.
50 millisecond page load, maybe less. You
That's
see how
amazing.
fast it is.
Yeah.
And I turn it on again. Oh, there's my. I have
Images.
to check what this is. This might be a client query.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
what we built like this little tool that you can actually say, okay, let me just clear everything. So what if the signal beans is very strong? It directly with hydration just changes this.
Wow.
So you can do it from the edge where you have no JavaScript and it just
That's
shows
crazy.
this thing.
That's crazy.
But you can also do it on hydration. So when I go to other pages, like when I go to coffee makers and I scroll down and I
Mm.
maybe go to this one, a whole bunch of things can have been tracked.
Mm.
And then it's going to show you different related products if you want, or a different query to a CMS or whatever.
Wow.
And in here, you can control all of that.
That's incredible. That's I feel like this could have been very, very useful. How I wish that I've learned about this like a year ago because that was when we were doing A/B testing for our new templates marketplace at Vercel,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to like hard code the middleware to understand like, oh, if the user falls into the bucket A, we show them the variant A, and if not, show them the other variant, and
And
we had to
you could
track
have easily
everything.
done it, right, with code, but it's kind of
Exactly.
annoying. And so
Yeah.
we've kind of just normalized this
Yeah.
with this tool. And so we needed to kind of figure out how do you do personalization on something that's static in nature?
Hmm.
Well, you have to see the edge. We just have a little middleware. Oh, I
Hmm.
actually haven't even shown you that middleware. We can show that middleware.
Okay. Yeah, I also want to kind of touch base a little bit on the on-demand ISR thing
Yeah, we need
later.
to talk about that one as well, because
I have
that's
a
a
good
very
demo
interesting one.
for that one. Yeah.
Let's see, where do I have this one? Oh yeah, here we go. So the middleware, it's actually relatively simple. We have a manifest file
Hmm.
that holds that this file is created on build.
Right.
So you don't have to dynamically load this. So when you
Okay.
hit build, it just queries uniform in a simple npm script,
Hmm.
and that basically gives me all the information about whatever personalization I have, right? So this is the beans personalization, which is a cynical for a UTM campaign, and it scores you 50 points, but it's a maximum of 100. So my middleware knows about this stuff now.
Hmm.
And then we have a context edge Vercel package that understands the Vercel edge. And
Mm.
what it does, it gets the information from the page, it alters the thing basically and returns it.
Right.
It's just literally a response changer.
I have a good recommendation for you. If you scroll up to lines 40, I think. No, up. Yeah, right here between
If
lines
probably.
25 to 38, we
Yeah.
have this. Actually, you're already using it, the middleware matcher function that you could do inverse matching. So you can say that if the
Ooh,
path is not something, you then match it. So you
that's
instead of
probably
having to,
better.
yeah, I can send you the code after this, but that's
Oh,
what we're
cool. Thanks.
using for the platform starter kit actually. So yeah, I think it would be really useful.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for
Because
that.
that basically also helps you save on the middleware invocation. Because if you're doing this, right, if
Yeah.
paths start with whatever you don't run it, you're still
Mhm.
invocating middleware on all those different paths. But with
Exactly.
the negative matcher, you just don't invoke anything. So that could be much better.
Oh, that is definitely better, because right now it's kind of looking at all these things, and essentially every file that's loaded goes through the middleware, right?
Exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
instead of that, I can show you a quick way right after this to make it work.
Oh,
Anyways, sorry, keep going.
no, that's all good. We essentially have these kind of middleware functions and these npm packages
Mhm.
for all your competitors, essentially. Like
Nice.
we have this for Akamai, for Netlify,
Hmm.
for Cloudflare, all the stuff, because this is just a very interesting way of having a super fast website
Hmm.
and then enhancing it with something on the edge. And
Right.
so we know all this edge stuff now. We love this stuff. And
Right.
so that fits so much in the new Next app directory approach to things, because we actually love being able to do it all on SSR and then
Hmm.
hydrating it just a little bit for this personalization tracker.
Yeah.
Right, because what it does, it looks, you can configure it to look at, like, if you scroll past something or if you click
Yeah.
a certain button, it fires an event, and we can push all of that in your analytics tool of choice. But we also
Oh.
track it for you, and we store it in local storage if you want, or in cookies, or
Yeah.
just memory. You can also just refresh your browser and personalization is gone. We can do whatever you want. So
Yeah.
we
The cool
need a bit
thing,
of hydration.
for sure. I think the cool thing about another cool thing about Edge middleware is you can easily track like the location, geographic, language, all these different like personalized aspects of the user. So you can basically do like if the user is from Canada, show them a different route or show them a different,
And we have actually
variant.
integrated that into Uniform. So if you have a
Beautiful.
Vercel integration,
Hmm.
when you're configuring your personalizations, like right now, the one you just saw was just a UTM campaign query string.
Hmm.
But we can also say, hey, if there is something we call a quirk, which is a key value store that has been set by an edge or by
Hmm.
something else, then do personalization. So we have your
Nice.
location, all the stuff. It's
Hmm.
fully integrated inside Uniform already.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. But let me show my screen so I can show
Yes, please.
you this. No, I think I want this. Okay, can you
Well,
see it?
Janos is probably going to have to build this now because he says the showcase hits me right at the exact time. Well, Janos, I expect you to show me some stuff soon.
Perfect. So I'm sharing
All
my
right,
screen.
here we
Okay,
go.
perfect.
Show
So
me the
this is
magic.
what I wanted to just quickly touch on is just the negative matcher. So in this case,
Oh,
you
yeah,
can see
exactly.
here, instead of having to do all those like unmatch underscore next, unmatch all these different things, all you need is just match all paths except for, and then you do this negative matcher, which is question mark. I don't even know what this syntax is, but I
No, I
learned about it from
honestly, this is just a regex, I guess. Well, not just.
exactly.
It's a bit above my pay
It's a
grade, but
bit
cool.
same. I learned about it from one of my like the Edge experts, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is amazing! This is like game changer." So yeah, just do honest like question mark, exclamation mark, and whatever you want to unmatch, and that's it. This last one is a bit complex, but what it does is like this one right here, it basically just unmatches all the root files inside public folder. So if you have like
Oh, smart.
favicon.ico, sitemap.xml, or like I
Yeah,
don't know,
exactly.
webmanifest.json or whatever, you can unmatch those as well. But yeah, that's basically what we're doing for platforms. And speaking of platforms, I just wanted to quickly demo what platforms is. It's basically like what I mentioned earlier. It's a multi-tenant platform that allows people to, in this case, write their own blogs. So we have the demo.vercel.pub. It also supports custom domains. So platformize.co is a custom domain that maps onto demo.vercel.pub.
Hmm.
So if you go to steven.vercel.pub, there's also a blog there. It's basically what I just use for all my
It's
demos.
so fast, dude. It's
Exactly.
crazy.
It's all statically generated, which is why it's
Yeah.
it's really fast. And let me show you something cool. Revalidate checks, right? So this page, it's already cached at the edge at build time,
Okay.
and I can verify that by going into this little tool that we built at Vercel. I don't know when, but you can see that the cache is hit, right?
Yeah.
It's a cache hit, and so and right now, if I were to edit that page, if I were to add something to it, instead of having to rebuild the entire app, I'm like add stuff here. Instead of having to rebuild the app, when I click publish, what it does is it hits this API route that revalidates that particular page. So right now you can see the page is already revalidated.
And now is it now rebuilt by Vercel, like the CI tool, or is it actually a cache in the state of the running Next app?
It's not rebuilt. I mean, it is technically re-rendered. The page is re-rendered,
Well,
but
the
it's
first
just
time,
that.
and then it's just cached.
Yes, exactly. It's just
Hmm.
that page that is re-rendered. So if I go here, it's hit again because
Yeah,
it's already been
exactly.
cached and rebuilt, and it's just that single page. So it's very resource efficient when
Yeah.
you're running a blogging platform, for example, or like like a Substack clone, like a newsletter platform. You don't really need to rebuild an entire application every time one of your users makes a change, right? All you need to do is invalidate that page and serve a new, fresh, static version of that page. So what this revalidate function does. It allows you to do exactly that. And moving on
That's really
from,
cool, man.
yeah,
Sorry, go on.
so it's something that once you guys integrate it into Uniform, you basically help your clients save on a ton of like Vercel build time.
I think this part, if you look at like
Integrated
SSG with
code gen.
ISR, we have this in place already.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's
exactly
already
what you
there.
need. So in here,
Well, I'm saying that my CTO is here in the chat.
mhm,
So Alex, tell me if I'm
hey Alex,
lying, but I'm thinking we did that. Yeah, we've had that
perfect.
before.
Yeah, I mean it's as simple as calling await rest dot revalidate and specifying whatever URL path that you want,
It's
and
nice.
it
It's so
happens like
simple.
magic. Happens within, I believe it's 300 milliseconds. It's really fast. So if someone pushes a change in New York, within 300 milliseconds, you can get that change in Singapore. It's already updated. So it's really,
And
really
so
fast that way.
in 300 milliseconds, you spread it across your CDN network.
Correct. It's propagated across, I believe we have 20 plus regions, if I'm
That's
not mistaken.
crazy.
So it's
Yeah,
really,
so
really
Alex
fast.
says we have this stuff.
Oh, awesome.
It's
That's amazing.
well, this is also not the hardest thing to implement. Like what we
Exactly.
realized is when we did the app folder,
Hmm.
right? Looking at that is our SDK just sometimes depends on some browser related things because of the
Right.
personalization. It's all kind of one lovely package of magic.
Right.
And then so that gave us a few issues, but I think we
Hmm.
just have to iron out the kinks on that side, and then it should
Yeah.
work. So, to your mind, like having this whole new app router, for example, and all this other stuff,
Yeah.
should it just be the same as how you would use it in Next 12, or should you just remove all that like get static props
Yep.
functionality and stuff? What would be the right way to use Next 13 now?
You have perfect timing. That's exactly what I was going to talk about
Oh,
right
there we
after this.
go. I like it.
So I'm actually working on so I started on it a while ago, but it got a little bit distracted. But I'm working on this migration towards the app directory for the platform starter kit. And
Oh,
the
cool.
reason behind that, I think I have a proposal on that. I'm not sure if I can show it, but let me try and see if I can rip that out.
Show us your internal
Um,
PRs. Go for it.
let me see if I can. I think I can. Actually, I probably shouldn't because there was a bit of spoilers in there. But basically, the reasoning why we want to transition to the app directory is because it's going to help with both performance and also scale. Like for example, right? To give you a really simple example, if I were to run this as an actual business, and I have thousands of customers, each of them have hundreds of pages. So
Exactly.
if, for example, if one of them were like, okay, I want to change my logo here for my site, I don't like it, and they have like 100, 500 pages of like blog posts. If I were to do it in today's age with the pages approach, you'll need to send a revalidate request. You probably need to batch that, but you got to revalidate all 500 pages because that logo it's spread across all 500 pages.
Yeah, so that would be like a full rebuild essentially.
Exactly, it's a full rebuild of that. You might as well just push a new build on Vercel, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Same
That's what
thing
we tend
goes.
to do now, anyways.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So the same thing goes with like stuff like fonts, for example. With this, you will need to basically, if there were to change the font for the entire site, you'll have to rebuild everything. But with the new React server components and app router paradigm, all you need to do is revalidate that header component right here. Let me see if I can show it. But this header component right here, right? All you need to do is validate this component.
Yeah.
The rest can stay the same. So it becomes very resource efficient because in this case, you are setting that header component to a certain like revalidate time frame, or you can use on-demand ISR. But
Yeah.
all that's being changed is that header component.
That is
Everything
super
else
cool.
is still persistent in the cache. And yeah, that's gonna be a game changer.
And so you can still render it as a static app essentially with the same
Yes,
performance.
same
Wow.
performance, same static, same like time to first byte. Everything is within 100 milliseconds. You can get that page, and you maintain that dynamism of being able to change the
Hmm.
logo, the font, the name, whatever, within 300
So
milliseconds.
it's essentially just version 2 of how you would do a Jamstack site. It's just another iteration that's smarter.
Exactly. It's smarter,
Cool.
it's faster, it's more dynamic. You don't need to, and it's more resource efficient. You save on compute. You don't need to rebuild 500 pages. Instead, you just rebuild that single component.
Yeah, that's
We
awesome.
think that, yeah, it's especially very useful for a product like the platform starter kit. Yeah, which is why I'm very excited for version 2. There's going to be a lot of new exciting updates to it as well. I
Mhm.
don't want to spoil too much of it, but
Just for us, give
just
us
for you,
one. Just give us one thing.
the coolest thing is going to be AI integration. I want to add like just a simple like AI writing assistant
Mhm.
to it because of this whole AI hype train that's going on right
Yeah,
now. Just
we've also done something like give me a product description in uniform. Click, and it would
oh,
just do
click
it.
and it just generates. Oh,
Yeah, we have that
beautiful.
stuff. It's really cool.
That's beautiful. I think I feel like that's a very the direction that the world is going into. Like just every single app right now has to have AI assisted aspects to it just to improve the
Yeah,
user experience. Obviously, if
exactly.
you're building like, I mean, even if you're building like what I'm building with Dub, a link shortener tool, there are aspects that you can use AI. For example, we have this feature that you can, add like a custom meta description or meta title for your
Yeah,
links.
but
You can
that's
put
actually a good move to have, right?
exactly. So for those, you can easily use AI to generate those titles, descriptions. You can even use Midjourney or something to generate the custom OG images. So there are aspects to be added. Yeah, Allen Iverson.
That's a good one.
So yeah, there's definitely um, a lot of room to add AI, especially for you guys too. If like what you mentioned earlier, you can even give it like a affectionate name. You can call it Genie. You can call it, I don't know,
Yeah,
Jasper.
something
Like all
fun like
this,
that. Yeah.
exactly something that matches to the uniform brand. I feel like it's a way to
Yeah.
go.
No, but
Anyways,
like we have something we like to call the glue code monster. We call him Gludo because basically what we do, like imagine you didn't have uniform. You had all
right.
these sources that have to come into the front end, right?
Hmm.
You have to write a lot of code to query these sources from your
Oh,
components and then map the data so they fit your props.
right.
Or maybe you don't map and you just change your components, but then you cannot use them next year.
Yeah.
And so we call that glue code. So you're literally gluing all the things
Mhm.
together so you can no longer change. So you had this lovely headless composable system that the developer just meticulously picked together and then you're stuck.
Yeah.
And so uniform completely kills that because the props that you want in your components, you just map them to data in uniform. And
Ooh,
so if you want to change the CMS or add something else, the code is not even different.
that's
It's the
amazing. I love
same.
that. I love that metaphor right there. I think
So
you guys
that's
could
our
come
glue
up.
code monster. So maybe that could be some sort of AI.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Is there like a mascot or like the animal that you guys use at our uniform, like to battle that blue
Let
coat
me show you.
monster?
I can show you.
It's amazing.
Here we
At
go.
Vercel, we have a very funny. I don't think it's very public, but we have an internal animal that's like our spirit animal. It's like the lizard because
Oh, really? I
Vercel.
didn't know that. Look,
Vers,
this
I
is
can.
this is
I can.
Gludo, the glue code monster.
Oh no way! That looks really cool.
And so we basically when we have Zoom calls, he's like there creeping on the side in your background.
That's hilarious. Yeah, it looks like something that's generated with I don't know, Midjourney or like Dolly Stable
Oh,
Diffusion.
we just have a very talented designer who did that all with Illustrator and his lovely pen and stuff.
Wow. Okay, that's props. Heads off to that. But yeah, going
Yeah.
back to the lizard aspect, and the reason we
Yeah.
call it lizard is very stupid. It's just like it's not stupid, but it's kind of funny. It's kind of affectionate thing. But Versalian, that's how we call people who work at Vercel.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
Versalian
cool.
sounds yeah, Versalian sounds similar to reptilian. That's why
Mhm.
we call it, like we have this dancing lizard. It's very I don't know. It's very funny.
So for on next conf, I expect Guillermo to have a lizard on his t-shirt or something.
He'll be dressed in a lizard mascot, just jumping around
Oh,
SF.
that's even better. There you go.
But
Um,
speaking of, I mean,
oh,
NextConf, it's not NextConf, but we actually have very exciting events coming up in May. I'm
yeah,
not
I
sure how
saw
much
you
I'm
guys were
supposed.
already recording Guillermo on his own in like an empty apartment.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, keep an eye out for May. I think there's going to be a lot of cool things coming out that actually would work. So one of the things we're launching, I'm not gonna say what it is because I'm gonna get freaking I don't know NDA stuff. But one of the things we're launching actually will work really well with uniform, given what you guys do. So
Oh,
you can
cool.
start guessing what it is. But yeah, I
We
think
we
there
probably have a lot of ideas about what it is, but let's not speculate.
for sure. Yeah, I think there's gonna be way more room for us to collaborate in the future. and I'm really
Well,
excited
we
for
we are official partners, and we're doing a bunch of things together already.
that.
Because,
Nice.
like right now, for example, a lot of bigger companies are running on a CMS called Sitecore,
Oh yeah.
which is essentially it's a really cool CMS because it's a great editing interface. People are used to it. You've had training, all that stuff,
Hmm.
but the front end is it's quite challenging to make it run well. And
Right.
they have, they've taken a lot of steps forward to make it better, but
Hmm.
it's a bit challenging. And
Mm,
so we partner with Vercel to make these Sitecore websites amazing. Because
that's
in
amazing.
Uniform, we can make any Sitecore website Jamstack with
Wow.
next.js and then connect it to Uniform. And then you can add any other CMS to it if you want. And then suddenly you have a way to move away from your legacy while
Wow.
still using it because your content editors have trained for 6 years in this, right? You're not just gonna
Yeah.
big bang
Ditch that
remove it.
entirely. Yeah, for sure.
So we
That's
essentially
incredible.
just make it a data source that you select in your front end and then use next.js to render it.
That's
And so with
incredible.
that, we have
We have
lots of Vercel related stuff going on.
nice. We have a lot of I believe we have a lot of Sitecore customers, and Sitecore is one of the largest partners as well. So it's
Oh,
great that you
cool.
guys are in the loop, because I can imagine how, like, I'm personally, I'm gonna die on a hill that beautiful UX is always going to win at the end of the day. Like, sure, there might
Yes.
be like Salesforce, like terrible DX, but terrible UX, but a lot of like large companies are using it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you do not innovate your user experience or your user interface and make it beautiful, like Linear has amazing. It's a great
Exactly.
example,
We
right?
love using linear. That's crazy.
Exactly. So if you don't
Yes.
innovate, there are gonna be newcomers that are gonna take away your market share, and eventually might even take over like the entire piece of the pie. So I'm glad that you guys are already partnering with Vercel and working with folks from Sitecore.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe you guys might get acquired by Sitecore. I don't know. I'm just speculating
Um,
here.
I can
But
tell you that is not going to happen
okay.
based on the fact how many people from Sitecore we have working at Uniform. That's not going to happen. But I love
Oh,
that you
you
just
guys are
said
gonna
that.
acquire Sitecore. Okay. Anyways.
I'm going to clip this and send it to my friends.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, so this synergy here is very important for them to stay relevant, as well as for you guys to help bridge the gap between certain
Exactly.
developers and content creators, content teams at all these large companies. So yeah, I'm glad that you
Yeah,
guys
like
are.
we have project where we have like web companies that had like 100 websites or something, all on Sitecore, and we
Mm,
moved them to Vercel with Uniform. And I think they went from 5 second page loads to 100 millisecond page loads. But on top of that, they were able to just kill all their content delivery servers from Sitecore in
damn.
Azure, and that is
Oh,
their cost went down by tenfold, I guess.
whoa. So
That's
wait.
that's
Help
business
me
innovation
understand
right
this.
there.
You guys do CDNs as well, like content delivery? Like it
Well, we
basically
just in
attaches.
this case, I think we just used Vercel as CDN.
Oh, I see. So it's generated. It's a pre-generated build time, and then you can do on-demand validation, whatever.
Exactly. We have
Oh,
all
that's
that stuff, and
brilliant.
so basically we connect to any Sitecore version, even like 10-year-old ones, and
Mm.
we just kind of modernize it,
I can
and that
imagine, like,
helps you just.
I can imagine that's why the app router is such an exciting conversation for you guys as well, because a lot of those like component-based validation that I mentioned earlier, it's going to be very relevant as you guys evolve your SDK. In the future, you don't need to trigger rebuilds. You don't even need to trigger revalidations of an entire page.
Exactly.
You just trigger, changes. So that will basically help your client save on cost, save on, time to revalidate a page, time to get fresh content, and at the end of the day, the end user experience is going to be supreme. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so what we have built now in our Sitecore product, at least, is when you hit publish on a certain page, it only rebuilds that one and puts it back in.
nice, 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 nice.
It's not using all, well, I'm not sure, but it's not using all your fancy new stuff just yet. But because we have to, we don't just do it with Vercel because lots of big companies are at Akamai, for example, or on Azure. So
Yeah.
we have to make it work across these.
Oh man.
But like that's what's so interesting about working at Uniform is that we come from this, like I think in our company we have like 150 years of CMS experience in all the people. Like
Wow.
we've been around how these things work, and now with companies like Vercel changing the game so much, man, it's really fun. And
That's
I'm kind
amazing.
of aiming to use all your new stuff and then speak it in the next conf to see how we can all
Nice.
put it together.
Wow,
That's going to be
150
fun.
years. That means you guys have been around since what, 1850? Okay.
Exactly. No, no. We just combine all the people and then think about it. Like
Nice.
me
So cool.
alone, I've been working with this stuff for like, I don't know, 16, 17 years.
Wow, that's
And then when you
insane.
have people that are older than me and have done it for longer at higher levels, like we have people like we can I cannot really talk about it, but like we have so
Mm,
much experience in like what should you see, like how does content actually flow? How do editors use it? Like because
wow.
between you and me, we can talk about developers all day long, but without
Yeah,
content editors, you're nowhere.
for sure.
Right? Do you think Nike.com would work without content editors? Not
Mm,
even close.
yeah, 100%.
And
How
so
so?
that's what our goal at Uniform is, kind of just mix those two and make them both happy.
Yeah, yeah. A happy synergy between the two is a happy company. What's the origin story? Like when did you guys start? Like before we close off, I'd love to know like how long ago did you guys start? What's the story behind it?
Ooh, let me think about that. So Alex, who was just in, who did this lovely comment about Allen Iverson, he's our co-founder and CTO with two
Mm.
other guys. They used to have they used to work at Sidecore actually, and
Oh,
then
nice.
they had a consultancy company after that,
Hmm.
and then probably they just had to scratch their own itch and build a cool thing.
Mm,
And so essentially, it started with have these all these Sidecore sites and make them better for the modern age. That
nice.
was how it started. And then realizing that like all this headless stuff is amazing, right? You can really easily use fetch and connect to things, but at scale, when you don't, it's so hard to code things to
Yeah.
connect to all these systems and the sidecore stuff, right? In
Yeah.
next.js, for example.
Mm,
Like not everybody is the 1% of our space, like where you and I work. We know all these things
mm,
because it's our daily life. But some people are not like that. They're product owners or
mm.
developers in an agency who work at mid-level. They don't understand this stuff, so it becomes really hard. So that's how Uniform as a platform started. Like, how can we connect all these things to make it more friendly for developers and for content editors?
I love that.
And that grew. Like our messaging changed like 10 times because this is a thing that doesn't exist right now.
Yeah.
Like we call it now, it's called digital experience composition. So you're compositioning, like you're composing and orchestrating your digital experience.
Damn.
And it's a totally different thing because people think, hey, it's a CMS or it's an API aggregator or it's a BFF. It's none of these. It's all of them
Yeah.
plus
It's all of
extra
them at the
things,
same
plus
time.
personalization, plus edge
Yeah.
rendering, plus whatever we
Damn.
want to throw at it, right? It's crazy
I
because we
love
have a
that.
visual editor
Yeah.
that's agnostic from any tool. Whatever CMS you throw at this, you can
It's
visually edit it in Uniform.
crazy. It's crazy
That's not
how
a
many
thing that exists.
integrations that you guys have built and
Right now,
I love
we're
this
like at 30 or something.
30.
But
Wow.
you know what's fun? We actually built Postman inside Uniform. So any API that you can think of, you
Yeah.
type it in, you get your data, you assign it to your props, you run. Like the
Wild. That's
website I
wild.
just showed you that uses next app
Yeah.
folder
Yeah.
that has a Notion and a YouTube integration that I literally built in Uniform.
Oh
There
my
is no
God.
code. I just typed in my bearer
Notion
token,
with the API key.
API,
Yeah.
run.
That's
That's it.
crazy. I love that. I love that you guys are doing this because I feel like every day I work at Vercel, like, and on Twitter and tech Twitter, developer Twitter, it's like we're in this bubble, like we're in this bubble, like
Oh
the
yes.
top one, not, I wouldn't say top, but like the 1% of people in the world that, Next.js, edge rendering, all this cool stuff.
Yeah,
Literally
we know what
99%
these
of the
words
world.
mean, right?
Exactly. 99% of the world are still in that, I wouldn't say stone age, but like in that age where
WordPress.
WordPress like literally runs 70% of websites in the world. They don't really
Exactly.
care. They don't know that they need to care about this kind of stuff yet. So
Exactly.
Uniform is a great. You guys are doing incredible work at like bridging this gap and showing them, this real world impacts of going from 5 seconds to 100 milliseconds, showing them that it's important to think about this stuff, but we handle it for you. So
Exactly.
that's why I love
And
what you
but
guys are
the
doing.
fun thing is we're doing it without upsetting developers. Because there
Yeah.
are tools out there that do this that developers are unhappy with.
Ooh.
But we cannot have that. We are developers,
Oh yeah,
right? So
definitely.
that's like if you look at Vercel, all the tools you're making is to make developers happy,
Yeah.
right? We do similar stuff, but then also make sure that content editors are happy. And
Oh,
that's
that's
it's the
beautiful.
extra challenge, but it's working, right? So that's cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that's fantastic.
How about let's end with that bombshell because we did
Nice.
an hour.
Yeah.
Thank you for your enthusiasm.
Of course.
Where can people find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter. I'm mostly most active on there. It's just Steven Tey, my name in one word.
Awesome.
I started posting on LinkedIn as well, but mostly reposts of whatever I do on Twitter. So Twitter is the best medium.
That's what we all do. It's all good.
100%, 100%. So yeah, it was a pleasure chatting with you guys. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for partnering with Vercel. I think there are a lot of cool things that we can do in the future, and I look forward to doing more of these in the future as well.
I'll be demoing you when our SDK is updated for this stuff to
Mhm.
show you the awesome.
Beautiful.
We're working on it as we speak, literally. There you go.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, I look forward to it.
All right, dude. Thank you so much for joining us. Cheers.
Thank you, Tim. You have a wonderful rest of your day.